Yep, no shocker. Another album review. Now, here comes some questions and some hate. Levi or Thrash Maniac, you said you weren't going to check this album out based on a couple songs you didn't like. Well, you know what? After a little bit of a comment discussion with Cover Killer Nation on his Facebook page, when he was talking about the album, I just pretty much said after hearing a song on the album, I thought it was disappointing. Didn't really care for it, but it was my opinion. But then he said he was starting to dig it. I'm like, I might give the album a shot just to see if my opinion will change. And what do you know? Here I am. Title below, the review of the brand new Obituary album, Inked in Blood. Now, this is the first Obituary album to be released in 5 years since Darkest Day came out in 2009. And ever since then, they've kind of been struggling after they got dropped by Candlelight Records. They were trying to find a label. They were in talks for a while with Century Media, but ultimately they signed with Relapse Records, which is actually very good. And also, while they were at it, they lost their second bass player, Frank Watkins, who had been on every album from Cause of Death till Darkest Days. So this was the first album to not feature Frank since this is the only Obituary album to have a bass player change since the first album, Slowly We Rot, which is an album I own in my collection, along with Cause of Death, the first album with Frank. So they have Terry Butler, who is a legendary bass player for death metal, because he was in Death some of the early years of that band's career. He was in 6 Feet Under. He's the founder of Massacre. Now he's in Obituary, which is a big gig because Obituary is one of the early pioneers of the death metal style. Excuse me. And then also, for those who don't know who Obituary are, Obituary is a death metal band that formed in the mid-'80s, 1984, so they were considered one of the founding forefathers of the death metal genre for its fast, brutal playing, with some intricate, slower stuff, with the amazing voice of John Tardy. I mean, if any of you guys saw my top 10 death metal vocalist video, I said John Tardy was number 1 because he has a crazy voice to him. But so now we get to this album. Now I know I said after listening to a song I wasn't really going to check the album out because I was disappointed by the song. But you know what? I'm going to be honest with you. This album is a grower, a huge grower. If you didn't like it at first, or some of the songs at first, give it another listen. There's a big chance that your opinion will change, and that's indeed what happened with the whole album. I mean, the only weak track I could really say was the opening track, Centuries of Lies. I mean, I thought it was a solid track to kind of get things going, but the rest of the album, wow. Riffs. Holy shit, riffs. Holy crap. I mean, songs from Violent by Nature, Pain Inside, Violence, Inked in Blood, Out of Blood, Paralyzed with Fear, Within a Dying Breed, all have those real gory lyrics. I mean, you would expect that from an Obituary album because they have kind of dark gore type lyrics, not to the extent of Cannibal Corpse or anybody like that, or even Aborted, but pretty gory stuff and dark stuff that they write in their lyrics, even though they say they put very little lyrics on their songs because they really want to focus on the instrumentation for the most part. That was especially prevalent in the early albums like Slowly We Rot, Cause of Death, The Incomplete, all those albums from like the late 80s to the mid-90s. But with this album, they definitely kind of harkened back some of their old school elements with a bit of a modern twist. I know I said in the comments thing with Cover Killer Nation, I thought they tried to go a little Hatebreed on the track Visions in My Head. I can still hear that a little bit, but it doesn't deny the fact that that was the song that got me a little worried in the beginning, but after listening to it again, holy crap did I dig it. Especially the whole album. I dug it a lot, you know? And then also you got like more conceptual kind of styled songs like Back on Top and Deny You and Within a Dying Breed, Minds of This World. Those were dark lyrics, but they also had a bit of a conceptual kind of idea behind them. But also, excuse me, let me get a drink of water. Excuse me. That's better. But yeah, they try to go with some different ideas to their their really darkness behind their lyrical content. They tried to do it in a little bit of a different direction with those tracks, to me at least, but I gotta tell you, every song on this album was very good to amazing. I mean, the opening track was the weakest song on the album for me, but the rest of the album's cycle of songs were absolutely tremendous. I was took by huge surprise by this album, considering how I kind of thought that Visions in My Head song was a little bit disappointing, but after listening to it again, it totally took me by surprise and I dug it. The same with the rest of the album. You still got some of your old school elements, but with a kind of modern twist to it. But overall, this album, I'm telling you, it's a growing album. It's a grower to people. It should be, at least, because this album, if you didn't like it the first time you heard it, listen to it again, because you might find something that you might have missed in the first time. And also, they kind of really, at most of the songs, changed the pace up on me. I know I've been saying that a lot about albums as of late, but it's the truth. I mean, you would get your fast songs like the song Out of This Blood, but then you would get your more mid-tempo kind of tracks and some more slower, simpler material, but they do it in a brutal, raw way. The production on this album was extremely raw, and it actually made for this album to actually be distinctive among the rest of the albums I reviewed this year, where the production for the most part has been rather good to amazing production. I mean, hence this album, except Blind Rage, by this album still the #1 album right now. But yeah, the production on this album was very raw, but it was good raw, not bad raw, if you ask me. The guitars on this album were the MVPs of the record. I mean, Trevor Perez guitar, rhythm guitar tone is just absolutely great. And their newest member, Kenny Andrews, is actually a solid player himself, though I don't think any Obituary guitar player could be better, in my opinion, than James Murphy, or maybe even Alan West, or Ralph Santalla for the most part, really. But Kenny Andrews is definitely showing that he has what it takes to play the stuff Obituary does. The drums on this album were rock solid. Donald Tardy still hasn't missed a beat. The bass playing from Terry Butler I thought was absolutely amazing, and you could hear it throughout the whole album. John Tardy's voice, it sounds painful at times, but that's because he's getting older and his voices has started to age compared to the early material where it was absolutely phenomenal what he was able to pull. But his voice was still very good. Don't get me wrong, it's just he just kind of aged a little bit, and that's because the guy is in his mid-40s now. But overall, this album, wow. A massive grower, took me by surprise. High praise to this album. I just can't believe how wrong I was when I said that I didn't think this was going to be very good based on one song, but that song, actually, I dig it now. And this album was a monster. 9.25 out of 10. A really great album. Not the best Obituary album in their catalog, but it's very good. But I want to know, what did you guys think of this record? Was you, like me, not sure what you would think about it, or not sure what you had to feel about it after listening to the tracks they've released? And after that, did you feel an opinion change after you listened to the whole album? Because I know it happened for me. To the point where I actually might pick this album up and put it in my collection. But anyways, peace, people.